The river tasted of iron and mud and all the things men spilled into its depths. Blood, sweat, fallen banners, broken hopes. Rhaegar Targaryen lay face down in that chill water while the thunder of Robert's warhammer still echoed behind his eyes, a phantom percussion brimming with shame. He should have died then. Everything, the prophecy, the music, the burden of a crown that was never meant to glitter on his brow, said so. Instead, the current turned him like an abandoned kite, rolling his silver-pale hair over his face until the strands clung there like river weeds. Breath returned in a ragged, reflexive gasp, tasted of silt and failure, but it was breath all the same. The bank rose slick and steep. Thick reeds bent over him, weeping green tears into the Trident. Somewhere downstream men cheered, others screamed, and warhorses shrieked their last. The battle was ending, Robert stag rampant over the shattered dragon. Rhaegar's hands clawed at the mud. The movement was purely animal at first, mindless. Then purpose seeped back through the feel of bones still whole beneath torn flesh. He forced himself to crawl. His armor, the fabled rubies hammered into sunlight-bright scale, dragged him down, each scale a chain on his soul. Rubies, small suns, spun away in the river's greedy pull, little sparks vanishing into gray. Memories of Harrenhal's tourney, Lyanna's laughter hidden behind a she-wolf's mask, and the hush that fell when he crowned her instead of Elia. They drifted with those stones, relinquished to water. Crawling became staggering. He rose to his knees, vomited river water, then reached instinctively for the weight at his hip. His sword was gone, lost to the mud. Gone too were the bright banners, the silver coronet, the songs sung in his name. He was a prince no more. He was a drowned man born again into exile with nothing but breath and blood and a name too dangerous to speak. "7 keep you," murmured a husked voice above. A bent shadow resolved into a fisherman, skin leathered by sun, eyes wide with a fear that dared to eclipse pity. The man looked upon the prince and did not bow. He only offered a hand rough with callous. Rhaegar took it and felt the tremor of his own weakness mirrored in another's flesh. Together they dragged what remained of the dragon onto a narrow skiff pulled into reeds. Words were scarce. The fisherman's daughter, a slip of a girl swaddled in river-stained wool, knelt before the marred armor, fingers brushing the rents in silver scales. She plucked a solitary ruby still clinging near the breast and tucked it away without thought. Rhaegar watched her, said nothing. One stone bought silence, another bought a flax cloak, a third bought passage downstream beneath a tarp that smelled of old nets and rot. Bargains forged in mud and fear. Night fell as the skiff drifted past the broken wreck of the Green Fork. The moon rose black, a hidden coin behind bruised clouds. Rhaegar lay there, listening to the river lap plank and flesh alike, and counted the heartbeats left to him. Each thrum was a lost soldier, a promise undone. Arthur Dayne's quiet smile, Lewin Martell's proud oath, quiet Elia's soft hand in his. Guilt grew fathom deep. He whispered their names like prayer beads, one by one, until at last he slept, cocooned in the scent of river mud and mildew. When he woke, the river was gone. Instead, the air tasted of salt and tar, gull cry knifing dawn. Somewhere near the fingers, he guessed. The fishermen had traded currents for tide. They unloaded him at a nameless crook of shore where broken hulls lay bleaching like whale bones and gulls picked half-eaten at memory. The fisherman would go no farther. In silence, he pressed into Rhaegar's palm a small pewter flask of rough brandy. Payment, perhaps, for the ruby given or for the secret kept, and turned back to river's mouth or his biting foam, never once looking back. Rhaegar stood alone upon a shore of tatters. Brandy scorched new fire in veins slowed nearly to stillness. He shed the last of his ruined scales, setting each silver plate upon driftwood like scales of an enormous dead fish. Wind rushed through the rents with a hollow whistle, an elegy for prince and kingdom alike. When the armor was a skeleton and the man beneath laid bare, he wrapped himself in the fisher girl's flax cloak and walked north along the edge of the world. Steps blurred into leagues. Days lapped him like slow waves. He begged at lonely crofts for bread, repaid with ballads spoken in a voice hoarse but unbroken. He was no longer Rhaegar. he was Ser Arlen, a hedge knight fallen on hard times, or Rory, a limping singer from Gulltown, whichever mask better suited the next hearth. Some nights he slept in haylofts, lulled by the breath of cows. Other nights he found only sky for company and watched the constellations he once studied in Maester Eamon's dusty tomes. They had not changed. Men below shattered crowns and kingdoms, but the celestial vault remained inviolate. He skirted the port of Gulltown under the cowl of a charcoal hood. Royal proclamations burned on every post. Traitor Prince slain at the Trident, Dragon line ended, Robert of House Baratheon crowned beneath the Seven. Merchants hawked stag-headed mugs and rude songs about lilies crushed beneath hammers. Rhaegar recognized himself in effigy on crude banners. His face bloated, tongue lolling grisly in death. The sight twisted his gut, but he passed in silence. A dead man could not argue truth. At an alehouse smelling of old hops, he found news spoken in whispers. Lord Jon Arryn fostered new alliances in King's Landing. Lord Stark returned north with the she-wolf's remains. Prince Viserys and infant Daenerys fled Dragonstone under the last loyal men of the crown. The king, Robert, the usurper, would soon wed a Lannister rose. Rhaegar drank honeyed ale until the room spun, listening. Each word was a dagger turned inward, carving away what hope remained of song and prophecy. When he rose, coins clinked on the table, but one was not coin. A ruby, dull under smoke-stained light. The innkeep stared as if he held a fallen star. Beyond Gulltown stretched narrow roads veined with frost. Autumn reddened the birches. Their leaves fluttered down like bleeding hands. Rhaegar's feet blistered and bled, yet he pressed on. The narrow sea beckoned like a mirror of his exile. Wide, cold, indifferent. At a seedy dock near Sisterton, he bought passage aboard a Myrish cog bound for Pentos. Payment. One final ruby and a song played on a weather-beaten harp scavenged from a drunk sailor's bunk. The tune was soft, melancholy, its chords threading night air until even salt-rough deckhands paused to listen. Music was currency no king could devalue. The voyage took 10 days. Storms hammered the cog, though autumn gales were nothing beside the tumult in Rhaegar's mind. He clutched deck rails and tasted brine and fear. Dreams tormented him. Lioness screaming his name from a tower of grief. Ares cackling while wildfire consumed sun-dappled halls. Children born of blood and smoke, carrying destinies he had only half understood. When dawn broke, he would sit astern, staring east, and whisper to the wind, "There must be meaning yet." Pentos greeted him with spice-laced air and the glow of 1,000 lanterns suspended like captured suns above red-tiled roofs. Sailors poured onto docks in a cacophony of tongues. Rhaegar slipped among them, a gray ghost amid riotous silks. He bartered the Myrish captain's kindness for introduction to Magister Illyrio Mopatis, a man rumored to trade in secrets as in saffron. But rumor gilded truth. Illyrio would not receive a beggar singer. Rhaegar's last ruby bought only a bolt of plain blue linen, a child's harp, and 3 nights lodging at the Bronze Boar. He played each dusk in the tavern's smoky rafters. Songs of summer wine and maiden's eyes coaxed copper pennies from drunk Sel's-words, but it was the sorrowed ballads, lament for Princess Nymeria's long voyage, elegy for Queen Naerys' lonely heart, that stilled the rowdy hall to reverent hush. Voices cracked with homesick longing. When he sang of dragons dying beneath Dornish spears, tears streaked faces that had never seen a dragon but felt the echo of grandeur lost. In those moments, Rhaegar glimpsed the power that had once guided his dreams. Prophecy was not merely ancient words, but something felt in the marrow when song met soul. On the 7th night, a hooded stranger lingered after applause faded. The man's accent wove silks and daggers. Tyroshi, perhaps, though it shifted like colored glass. He laid a silver stater on the table and murmured, "Silver Prince, the dead walk among the living." Rhaegar's hand froze on harp strings. The stranger's eyes were shadowed, but Rhaegar felt their weight as one feels the gaze of a hawk. "Come," said the stranger, "the world yet needs your song." They met in a candlelit loft above a spice warehouse. The stranger shed his hood to reveal a face of smooth copper skin and a lattice of earring chains glittering under lamplight. "Varys," he introduced with a mock bow, though Rhaegar had guessed. The eunuch had served King's Landing secrets since before Rhaegar first strummed harp in the Red Keep Gardens. "How did you—" Rhaegar began, but words faltered. "A mockingbird feathers 1,000 voices," Varys said softly. "Yet none so sweet as yours, my prince." He spoke of Viserys and baby Daenerys, of houses that whispered treason beneath Robert's roaring feasts, of golden company captains remembering bitter exile. "A dragon with 3 heads, they say," Varys mused. "But 2 heads remain, small and hunted. Their eldest brother might serve as unseen wing, if he so chose." Rhaegar stared at guttering candles. He saw Elaya's dark eyes, full of quiet reproach. He saw Lyanna's pale fingers slipping from his grasp. Prophecy whispered still, "The dragon has 3 heads." He had thought himself the prince that was promised. Perhaps he yet was, and perhaps he was not. Perhaps prophecy needed something else entirely. A fallen prince, nameless, moving pieces unseen upon the Sivas board. "I cannot return," he said at last. "My face is death in Westeros, my name poison. Even here, I endanger those I touch." "Then you must become someone no one would suspect," Varys breathed. "A ghost who shapes kings and keeps the song alive until the right hour." He slid across the table a silver mask hammered thin as spider silk. Its surface caught candlelight and twisted it into impossible shapes. Now a laughing bard, now a weeping fool, now a warrior's stern regard. "Essos is full of mummers' troops chasing coin from city to city. I can place you among them. In noise and spectacle you'll be invisible. And when the hour comes—" Rhaegar lifted the mask. Its edges were cold, yet something in that chill felt like absolution. Not prince, not king, not husband nor father. Only actor, singer, gentle hand upon distant strings. He slid the mask over his face. That night the Silver Prince died a second death, unmourned. In his stead arose Seren Waters, a traveling mummer with hair dyed chestnut, whose harp sang in shabby squares beneath crumbling statues. He followed a ragged troop, the Laughing Lions, south along the Valyrian coast. They juggled fire in Myr, danced swords in lists, and played tragedies older than old Valyria stones before crowds drunk on summer wine. Rhaegar's fingers coaxed song from cracked strings until even sullen bravos paused at tavern doors, entranced. Yet Exile was no gentle lullaby. In Volantis he watched a red priestess ignite a pyre and proclaim salvation in the name of R'hllor, the Lord of Light. Her gaze, molten gold in darkness, lingered on him through flame. "You smell of shadowed prophecy," she rasped. He fled before dawn, haunted by embers swirling like infant dragons. In Qohor he glimpsed Sel's words fresh from the disputed lands, bearing tales of a call with eyes like polished jet sweeping west across the Dothraki Sea. Whispers of Viserys begging ships and bravos reached him on salt winds. Rumors of infant Daenerys cradled beneath Illyrio's gilded roof pried at his heart. But Rhaegar stayed hidden beneath mask and song, for Varys' spiders were everywhere, spinning threads he could not yet read. Years stretched into a tapestry of wandering. Cities blurred, Norvos's waterbells, Mantaries' reeking streets where pale fireworms rotted in pits, Selharis' gardens trembling under summer storms. He aged, though kings in distant Westeros rose and fell faster than lines on his face. Robert's feasts turned to gout and regret. The realm's lords bickered like crows over bright corpses. Rhaegar heard, always, through sailors' gossip and mummers' scrawl, but did not return. Instead he listened to small folks' fears, to slavers' boasts, to red priests' murmurs of a dawn lit by dragonfire. He saw patterns knotting the world like harp strings drawn taut. Somewhere beyond horizon, winter gathered its first sigh, cold enough to swallow song. The prince inside him stirred. In Meereen's shadowed backstreets he found a boy dying of the pale mare. Rhaegar knelt, pressed water to parched lips, listened to delirious ramblings of a mother sold, a sister chained. The boy's fever broke before dawn, but his body could not follow. He died with sunrise painting eastern spires rose gold. Rhaegar buried him beneath abandoned olive trees. Grief stoked a new fire. Dragons were gone? Yes, but songs could still summon courage to break chains. He took up the harp that day not for coin but for revolution. The laughing lions dissolved. Sarin waters became an echo. Men and women scarred by lash and brand came to secret gatherings where a masked singer spoke of freedom in tongues older than cities. He taught them songs of Valyria's doom, of Nymeria's flight, of maidens who rode dragons into storm. Rhythm bred covenant. Covenant bred resolve. In time, gold flowed from Pentoshi magisters who disliked rival slavers' profit. Ships carried steel hidden beneath casks of olives. And always the spider's whisper followed, "Not yet, my prince. The tapestry must unfurl in its season." Rhaegar waited. He learned patience from the slow turn of stars. Winter crept across Essos, a hush of frost along the Dothraki Sea, rumors of white shadows stalking Skagos' coasts. Across the narrow sea, rovers spoke of hand of the king Ned Stark's execution and a boy king crowned upon cruelty. Wildfire roared beneath the red keep once again. The realm bled, and song demanded its refrain. One night, in a candlelit cellar beneath a perfumery in Tyrosh, Varys appeared without footfall, as though conjured from cobweb. His eyes gleamed like wet onyx. "The game nears climax," he whispered. "A dragon queen rises in the east, forged by flame beyond a Dothraki pyre. She means to hatch stone into fire." He laid before Rhaegar 3 unbroken dragon's eggs, shells shimmering deep green, cream gold, midnight blue streaked with scarlet. "The Khalasar thinks them stone. They do not know the blood needed for birth. But you do, don't you?" Rhaegar's fingers brushed the shells. Warmth pulsed, a heartbeat older than men. Prophecy coalesced. 3 heads. His own life, a narrow flicker, might yet ignite flame to scour winter's darkness. He swallowed, tasting fear. "I cannot be her shadow," he said, voice hoarse. "If I show myself, the realm will fracture anew." "Or unite," murmured Varys. "Behind a dragon who knows the cost of hubris." Candle flame shivered between them, painting dancing lights upon the silver mask. "Choose, my prince. Remain ghost, or step from shadow to teach the world its song anew." Rhaegar lifted the eggs, weighty as kingdoms. Music thrummed low in his chest. The mask melted in candle glow, a silvery tear sliding down cheek to fall upon stone floor with a soft chime. A choice as subtle, as final, as breath expended into night. He set the mask beside it, relic of a life unlived, and stood tall in flickering darkness. "I will go," he said. And so the dragon, long thought drowned, turned east toward the rising sun, carrying within his hands the last embers of a legacy that refused to perish. Each step weighed by ruin, yet borne aloft by song, he walked into history's waiting mouth, no longer merely survivor nor exile, but catalyst for fire and dawn. The cold of Tyrosh's pre-dawn lingered in stone and bone alike, but Rhaegar welcomed its bite as he stepped from the perfumery cellar into a narrow alley slick with last night's rain. 3 dragon's eggs weighed his satchel, impossible cargo that thrummed against his ribs like distant drums. He kept one hand braced across the leather flap, half certain the shells might burn through at any moment. Above, torn strips of silk banners drifted from tiled rooftops, their dye leached to subdued pastels, fluttering like mute reminders that colors, once bright, inevitably fade. He took the back ways, avoiding broad avenues where lamps still guttered and revelers clung to dregs of pleasure. Dawn's first ember glowed behind a slattern skyline of leaning chimneys when he reached the dock district. Fishing smacks bobbed in slush-gray tide, their masts rattling chains like restless ghosts. Rhaegar found the cog Varys had spoken of, Sable Kite, an unremarkable vessel whose faded paint flaked like old scabs, and boarded under the guise of a healer seeking passage to Karth. He paid in silver stags, nameless coin in Associ ports, leaving his final ruby untouched in cloak lining. The bosun counted twice, sneered, and waved him below. The hold stank of tar, mold, and stale millet. Hammocks slung between bulkheads rocked with each low groan of timbers, occupied by bleary-eyed traders and one gaunt septon fingering rosary beads carved of bone. Rhaegar chose a corner near crates labeled Turmeric Caution Dry in crude Valyrian. He wedged the satchel behind a barrel, rested his back to rough plank, and let the ship's heartbeat merge with his own. The eggs pulsed quietly, warmth radiating like coals banked against a long winter night. The voyage eastward blurred into rhythm. Day after day of whispered prayers from the septon, dice clattering among sailors, gulls wheeling before an endless horizon. Rhaegar offered tinctures of willow bark when fevers rose. In return, the men granted silence around his corner, an island of private dusk behind stacked cargo. Nights he spent polishing calluses on harp strings, coaxing music low enough not to carry topside yet strong enough to keep memory alive. He played The Minstrel's Farewell, Lady Forlorn, and One Reckless Dusk, the first haunting verse of A Falcon Swims the Rhoyne, a song few outside Summerhall's crumbling libraries even recalled. Mid-note he stopped, pulse racing, fearing recognition in an empty hold. No footsteps followed. Only waves murmured beyond hull. On the 12th day, wind died. The sable kite lolled motionless beneath a slate sky, canvas slack, masts creaking like tired knees. Crewmen cursed the breezeless god while the captain read omens in gull droppings. Supplies thinned. Rats grew bold. Rhaegar rationed his own water while tending an outbreak of ship blight, boils festering on elbows and shins. He slit pustules with a small iron needle, pressed clean linen, spoke soft reassurance learned from maesters long dead. In suffering, men forgot curiosity. They saw only the healer's calm hands, not the faint star-shaped scar above his left brow that once adorned coinage across 7 kingdoms. The doldrums broke on the 16th dawn, a squall snapping down without warning. Sails cracked like whips, and the kite heeled viciously. Cargo shifted. A crate burst beside Rhaegar, spilling fragrant gold powder that coated deck like desert sand. Lightning revealed faces etched in terror. Amid Ows, Rhaegar dove for his satchel, dragging it clear of a tumbling barrel. One egg, dark indigo streaked with crimson veins, slid free and thudded against his shin. Pain lanced to bone, yet he cradled the shell swiftly, scanning for watching eyes. None saw. The hold was a storm of its own. He nestled the egg beneath his cloak until squall and panic alike subsided. Thunder departed as abruptly as it had come, leaving sunrise glazed upon a glass-still sea. The captain deemed it miracle. Rhaegar saw a test. For hours he sat cross-legged, egg in lap, feeling its inner cadence steady alongside his own heartbeat. Wake, he thought, though no words passed his lips. The world will soon need fire. 5 leagues off Carth, the kite hove to within sight of black hulls bearing crimson manticore sails. A Carthene patrol accustomed to levying passage tolls. The captain's purse was thin. Bribes would leave them foodless. Rhaegar watched negotiation unfold on swaying gangplanks, saw Carthene eyes flick toward Holdway. Contraband spices, if found, would see the kite seized and crew sold to the Warlock's Tower or worse. Quietly, he approached the captain and pressed into his palm a single ruby, the last. A whispered suggestion. Tell them you bear sacred cargo bound for the pureborn's pleasure. Gemfire spoke a language beyond barter. The manticores sheathed their curiosity and let the cog pass unsearched. That night, beneath bulbous moons, the captain bowed awkwardly. You saved more than ship, healer, he rasped. Name a boon. Rhaegar asked only that a small skiff carry him ashore north of Cartha's milkstone walls. At dawn, he disembarked upon a narrow strand of black sand, harp across back, satchel clutched to chest. The sable kite dwindled to a blot against pink horizon. Soon even that smear vanished. Behind the beach rose dunes of crushed seashell and thorny scrub. Heat built quickly. Sandflies harried his eyes, salt-crusted lashes. He wrapped his face in linen and trudged inland toward a smudge of green rumored on sailors' tongues. The Garden of Bones, an old oasis haunted by exiles and smugglers alike. 2 days' march brought him to cracked aqueduct ruins. Feral goats eyed him warily. Their piss stained ancient marble the color of old brass. He followed the aqueduct south until it petered into wind-scoured pillars. There, half buried under drifted sand, stood a ring fort of pale limestone, ceilingless, open to blistering sky. In the fort's heart bubbled a shallow spring, turquoise and shockingly cold. Rhaegar drank until belly ached, then stripped and lowered each dragon's egg into water. Steam hissed. The pool's surface shimmered with violent ripples, though no breeze reached its hollow. When he withdrew the eggs, they were warm, almost hot to touch. Veins across shells glowed faintly for a breath before fading. He wrapped them again in lamb's wool and mused that heat alone was not enough. Blood and flame, the old books claimed. A dragon's birth demanded sacrifice. The thought chilled deeper than night desert. Rhaegar traced camel trade trails eastward. Caravans plodded from Karth to the far cities of Et. He joined one as healer and minstrel, payment in songs that eased monotony across endless dune. Merchants gaped at tales of Westeros, land of green fields and iron thrones. They spoke of their own wonders. Jade emperors who lived 1,000 years, moons of pearlescent stone that fell into sea to birth dragons of water. Each story he hoarded, tucking imagery into memory's coffer. Potential verses for some future night when words might sway hearts needed. A moon's turn later, the caravan reached the painted spires of Tiki. There, beneath vermilion banners strung between onyx pillars, Rhaegar parted ways, slipping alone into labyrinthine alleys sweet with incense and cloying with rot. His goal lay not in Tiki's markets but in the House of the Last Dawn, a library temple whose acolytes collected texts deemed heresy elsewhere. He bribed a sand-silk-robed initiate with 2 silver pieces for a day's access. Room lit by high-slit windows, scrolls piled like brittle snakes across cedar racks. He searched for treatises on dragon husbandry. Most were fragments. Valyrian glyphs recounting how hatchlings bonded to riders through shared blood. Accounts of sacrifices at Dragonmont where slaves were chained in rings around eggs while pyres roared. A Myrish translation of the Fires of the Freehold offered a cryptic note. The song is as crucial as the flame. Rhaegar pondered that. Maybe not sacrifice of flesh alone, but melody entwined with heat, with magic older than men's tongues. Music as midwife. He left the library at dusk, head aching from dust and revelation. Outside, night flowers opened, exhaling sugary perfume that masked the city's shitgut stench. In a plaza adorned with statues of jade wyverns, Rhaegar sat cross-legged and played his harp. Fingers plucked chords he'd never practiced. Minor thirds that shimmered like moonlit water, unresolved sevenths pregnant with yearning. Street children gathered, eyes wide. When last note faded, one small boy whispered, "Dragons." Rhaegar's heart skipped. He nodded once and gave the child a copper for silence. Letters reached him by raven weeks later, parchment smelling faintly of lilac powder. Varys' script unraveled news from across the narrow sea. Robert Baratheon dead by boar, a Lannister cub on throne, the realm splintering anew. Winter's heralds sighted in the north, and a final line. The Storm Lord's bastards line the streets of King's Landing, their blood-scrubbing cobbles whiter than milk. Rhaegar closed eyes. Guilt swelled, corrosive. Robert's children dead by order of Queen Cersei, collateral of crowns he once coveted. But Varys' letter ended with promise. The Silver Queen gathers strength in red waste. A mage of Ashai follows her flame. Beware grief's furnace. It forges tyrants and martyrs alike. Rhaegar burned the message, ashes spiraling into copper dawn. Compelled, he turned west again, trailed coastal roads toward Slaver's Bay. The land grew harsher. Cracked salt flats where bleached bones marked caravans that strayed. He rode a donkey purchased in Tiki, leading it by rope while walking more often than saddle to spare the beast. Humility learned from long exile. Nights he camped beneath arching sky indifferent to human folly, clutching eggs close for warmth and whispering verses until sleep claimed him. In the 20th day of March, he sighted Meereen's distant pyramid, topaz gold against smog haze. He skirted the city, for stories of crucified children lining its roads reached even Tiki. Instead, he found refuge in an abandoned olive grove overlooking marshes where flamingos preened at dawn. A band of freedmen occupied ruined stone outbuildings. Former slaves turned rebels once following the Mother of Dragons, now wandering masterless since she vanished on black wings. Their leader, a lank youth named Hark, greeted Rhaegar with wary courtesy. Scar tissue laced Hark's cheek where an overseer's whip had laid open flesh. The wound had healed into a jagged star. To these rootless, Rhaegar offered skill. Herbs for cough, bombs for whip-wheeled backs, and songs to soothe memories filigreed with chains. Evenings, under broken archways, he played while freedwomen mended nets and children chased fireflies. He did not speak his name, only asked them to call him Singer. Slowly, trust sprouted. Hark confided that Daenerys Targaryen had flown north and not returned. Myreen's council floundered. Slave catchers prowled outskirts. "We feared another conqueror when your harp first sounded," Hark admitted by lamplight. "But you heal, not rule." Rhaegar gazed at olive branches trembling in wind, silhouettes like black spines against violet sky, and wondered if healing might yet be his legacy rather than flame. But prophecy tugged. One midnight he carried the 3 eggs beyond grove to marsh pools steaming under moon. He arranged them upon ancient hearthstones abandoned by shepherds. Kneeling, he sliced his palm with obsidian shards scavenged from beach, let blood drip across shells. He began to sing, soft first, a minor lullaby stirring reeds, then stronger, weaving Valyrian phrases into Westerosi cadence, modulating to rising pitch until air itself seemed to shimmer. Marsh midges stilled. Frogs fell silent. Heat blossomed beneath eggs. Scarlet fishers spidered across shell of indigo one. Rhaegar's voice faltered, throat raw. A scream shattered night, human, not dragon. Hark stood at grove edge, eyes wide. Behind him, freedmen emerged bearing torches. Flames painted Rhaegar blood red. He scrambled to cloak eggs. Hark's gaze fixed on scarlet cracks pulsing. Fear twisted features to betrayal. "Sorcerer," he hissed, stepping back. "No," Rhaegar began, voice ragged. "These creatures could free you all. But at what cost?" Hark's torch wavered. "Myreen reeks still from dragon's judgment." Others murmured, stepping away. Trust curdled. Rhaegar lifted hands, palms empty. Flames guttered, showing tremor. "I would birth them careful, guide them against winter darkness, not upon you." Yet words fell like seeds on salted earth. Freedmen knelt, groping stones, hefting slings. Rhaegar retreated, gathering eggs into satchel slick with his blood. He fled marsh path, reeds whipping cloak, donkey braying alarm in distance. Rocks whistled past ear. One struck shoulder, spinning him. Pain spiked, but he ran, clutching destiny against chest. He did not stop until dawn blushed horizon. Shoulder throbbed, blood-soaked sleeve, mingling with the egg's warmth. He collapsed against acacia trunk, breath hitching. Tears welled unbidden, not for wound nor betrayal, but for final shattering of illusion that any part of him could live quietly in peace. Prophecy claimed all. 2 days he wandered, shoulders burning, fever creeping. On third, he reached a ramshackle settlement hugging cliffs where former slave ships rotted, repurposed as plank houses on stilts. The place stank of fish guts and brine but boasted a healer. An old woman called Mother Shadow for cataract eyes clouded milky white. She cleaned Rhaegar's wound with arak and honey, poulticed with crushed figs, and spoke prophecy while wrapping linen. "You carry fire unborn," she rasped. "But fire needs flesh and flesh needs purpose. Do you know yours?" "I thought I did," Rhaegar whispered. "Thought is smoke. Heart is ember." She tapped his sternum. "Listen." That night, fever dreams roared. Lioness stood in snowfall, hair-strewn petals upon wind, saying, "He is the song, you the echo." A great heart of ice cracked open, bleeding flame. Dragons circled above, yet their screeches were chords of a harp. When he woke, dawn lay pale, and determination coalesced sharp as Valyrian steel. He must find Daenerys before blood and grief ward her soul into tyrant or martyr. He must serve as echo-guiding song toward dawn, not doom. He bartered his harp for passage on a slaver galley sailing for the Red Waste, to retrieve fodder. The captain crowed, unaware fortune had set snare. Rhaegar scrubbed decks, mended sails, and in moonlit hush fingered invisible strings across calloused thigh, composing lullabies meant to cradle fire rather than scorch. The red waste greeted them with heat like furnace bellows. Sand stretched crimson to each horizon, scoured by wind sharp as razors. The galley's shallow draft allowed beaching on salt flats where bones of camels bleached to parchment. Slavers fanned out, hunting water-starved tribes. Rhaegar feigned illness, slipped away, trekking under a sun so bright it erased shadows. Guided by half-remembered tales, 3 carved stones marking secret well, he sought Khalasar tracks. Days blurred. Water skin dwindled to drops. He rationed sips, licked dew-off satchel leather at dawn. The egg's warmth grew erratic, sometimes hot enough to sting, other times stone cold. He pressed them to his chest, murmured lullabies until heat returned. On the 7th night, fire bloomed on northern horizon. Camp blaze, great as a city. He crested a dune and beheld a Khalasar encamped in a shallow basin. Tens of thousands of tents ringed flickering pits. At center, atop a rise of blackened earth, stood a pyre still smoldering though ceremony long finished. Rhaegar descended slowly, hiding satchel beneath cloak. Dothraki outriders spotted him near dawn, spears leveled. But when he addressed them in rough Dothraki learned from caravan guards they hesitated. Not at his accent, but at the glint of amethyst eyes exposed when Hood fell back. "Ghost man," one whispered. Eyes like fallen stars. They bound his hands with horsehair cords and hauled him towards central encampment. There, amidst perfumed smoke of burning horse bones, stood Daenerys Targaryen. She was no child now. Silver gold hair braided with bells, eyes wide and luminous as dusk-lit sea. Flame-scorched silk clung to frame slight yet unbroken. And on her shoulder, black wings folded, perched a hatchling dragon, smoke still curling from flared nostrils. 2 more clung to leather lash at her hip, green and cream, chittering softly. Sight stole Rhaegar's breath. Daenerys stepped forward, anklets chiming. Outriders knelt. She studied prisoner with gaze equal parts curiosity and caution. "Another fanatic come to kneel?" she asked in common tongue, voice hoarse from recent song. Valyrian prayer Varys' letter had mentioned. Rhaegar's pulse thundered. Blood and fire both awake, he thought. Purpose crystallized. He lowered eyes. "I bring no chains, my queen. Only counsel if you would have it." He dared not claim kinship. Truth would break more than build. Yet he felt eggs pulsing within satchel. A secret her hatchlings would sense soon enough. One black dragonling cocked head, yellow eyes fixing Rhaegar. Steam curled from tiny maw. Daenerys followed gaze, noticing satchel shape. "What do you carry?" "Hope," he said simply. She motioned. Guards cut cords. Rhaegar knelt, withdrew 1 egg, blue-streaked silver, and laid it upon ash-dust ground. Dragons hissed, wings mantling. Daenerys' breath caught. She extended trembling fingers, stroking shell. Heat flared between them. "Where did you?" "From shadow and song," he murmured. "3 heads, your grace. The dragon has 3 heads." She stared long, searching. Finally she nodded once, slow. "Walk with me," she said. "We have much to discuss." They spoke through night's remainder, wandering among embers of Khalasar's dying fires. Rhaegar offered tales of dragon lore, careful to veil identity behind years of exile. He taught lullabies that coaxed hatchlings to sleep, advised on feeding crushed bone mixed with lamb's blood. In return, Daenerys shared her vision. A world freed of chains, forged anew in dragonfire. Her fervor blazed bright. Beneath it, Rhaegar sensed fragile steel, untested by betrayal's vengeance could yet twist. He tread cautiously. "Fire alone may birth ash," he said while dawn painted sky sanguine. "Justice without mercy breeds tyrants." She bristled. "Mercy is a word slavers wield like whip. I would give justice." "Then give both," he urged. "A song is harmony, not single note." Words sank like stones into deep water, ripples yet unseen. They reached the pyre at Basin's center, the one where Daenerys had walked into flame to hatch dragons. Charred wood glimmered with veins of black glass. She turned to him in rising sun's gold. "Who are you truly?" Voice softer than wind. The open mouth closed it. Confession might shatter fragile alliance. Yet lies tasted foul. "A singer who once lost everything to crown's weight," he said at last. "Now I seek only to ensure prophecy births dawn, not dusk." She regarded him unreadable. "Very well, singer. Remain and teach." She gestured to eggs. "But should you betray me, dragons will know." Black hatchling bared needle-sharp teeth in agreement. Rhaegar bowed, hiding sudden moisture in eyes. Destiny had woven him back into family orbit, not as prince but as mentor. Perhaps that was prophecy's true shape. Weeks folded into routine. Khalasar pressed east toward cities of laser, raiding flocks to feed dragons that doubled in size within moons. Rhaegar accompanied Daenerys' inner circle, Ser Jorah, Blood Riders Aggo and Rhaegar, Interpreter Missandei newly freed from Sorrow Isle, offering counsel on dragon temperament, tactics, lore. He kept harp close, playing at dusk to soothe beasts and riders alike. Songs of old Valyria laced campfires, melodies threading unity through mismatched followers.
Exeslaves, Dothraki, Westeros y Exiles.
Viserys Targaryen was notably absent, skull rumored to decorate a wine merchant's saddle. Yet ghost of his scorn lingered. Daenerys carried memory of brother's cruelty like hidden bruise. Rhaegar avoided mention, though guilt for leaving siblings to such fates gnawed. One twilight, beneath sky bruised purple with brewing storm, Daenerys approached his fire. "I dreamed last night of a palace with 15 sorcerer kings," she said, sitting beside him. "They called me Mother of Monsters." Flames poured from my mouth. She shivered despite heat. "Is this fate?" "Dreams are mirrors," Rhaegar replied, plucking a low chord, "showing fears as often as futures." She watched flame dance. "Do you dream?" "Of snow," he confessed, fingers stilling. "And a song I once tried to sing but never finished." Thunder rumbled distant. She reached to his injured shoulder, faded scar beneath linen. "Why carry my burdens, singer?" He stared into storm-lit horizon. "Because the world must not drown in night, and because once I sought to rule, and in failing caused rivers of blood. This is how I repay debt." Her hand withdrew slowly. "Perhaps we share debt." She stood, cloak whipping. "When my dragons grow large enough, we shall sail west. Will you come?" He rose. "Until dawn rises, my song is yours." Lightning split clouds, illuminating her profile, youth and resolve carved in stark relief. In that flash he saw the ghost of Rhaella, of Rhaenys, of every Targaryen woman who bore prophecy's weight. He prayed silent that Daenerys would prove stronger than all. Seasons turned. Dragons outgrew tents, their screams rattling dunes. Khalasar tribes splintered, some fearful, some reverent. Rhaegar drilled Daenerys' unsullied recruits in discipline tempered by compassion. Sparring without death blows, shields as well as spears. He composed marching songs teaching cadence, breath, unity. Unsullied sang quietly at march, voices blending eerie and beautiful beneath desert stars. Yet shadows lengthened. Warlocks of Karth sent glass assassins. Mercenary sorrow spears plotted theft of dragon eggs. Spider assassins crawled camp latrines. Each threat Rhaegar uncovered with sharpened instincts learned in exile. He killed when needed, knife quick and silent, burying bodies where dunes shifted nightly. Burden of blood returned but felt lighter. Each life taken shielded a greater dawn. One night, Jorah Mormont confronted him outside main pavilion, hand on sword. "You fight like a knight," the exile growled, and quote the seven-pointed star between breaths. "Who are you?" "Someone who has learned the cost of titles," Rhaegar answered. "Secrets breed mistrust." Jorah's eyes narrowed. "If you endanger her, I would burn first," he swore, gaze steady. Steel rasped half-drawn, then sheathed. Jorah nodded reluctantly. "Then we keep watch together." At last Khalasar reached the green plains of Lazer, where flocks fattened and water ran clear. Daenerys declared rest, setting camp beside ruins of an old Giscari amphitheater half submerged in ivy. There, beneath cracked stone lions, Rhaegar began to teach her Valyrian harp. She fumbled strings, laughed. A bright sound R'hllai heard. Dragons perched atop columns, heads cocked at discordant notes. He guided her fingers. Loose wrist, breathe with rhythm. Their hands brushed. Sparks raced up his arm. Not desire, too tangled in guilt, but kinship, fierce and tender. One afternoon child refugees arrived, dozens, bones visible through skin. Their village razed by slavers from Yunkai. Daenerys's rage flared. She convened war council, opinions fractious. Some urged immediate assault, others cautioned caution. Rhaegar watched silently until voices fell. Mercy tempered by justice, he reminded. Free the slaves, but leave open a path for the city to choose alliance rather than annihilation. Daenerys considered, nodded. Plan formed. Send envoys with terms, grant time, then strike with precision if refused. Not ash, but renewal. Envoys returned flayed. War became only choice. Under stormlit dawn, unsullied lined before Yunkai's yellow walls. Rhaegar rode at Daenerys's flank astride lean palfrey. No sigil, only plain steel breastplate scavenged from Astapor armory. He felt specters of Trident grip his throat. Banners snapping, drums of war echoing those days when he wore rubies and believed destiny unquestionable. He tightened reins, whispered to eggs still in satchel. Not yet hatched but present. They pulsed like spare hearts, marking time. Battle erupted, dragons swooping to scorch siege towers, unsullied advancing in silent phalanx, freedmen archers loosing volleys. Rhaegar dismounted at shattered gate, sword flashing in narrow alleys. He fought not as prince but guardian, parrying scimitar then pummeling attacker's jaw, striking to disable not kill when possible. Yet death claimed many. Smoke-choked streets, screams blended with roars. In the temple of the Yellow God, Rhaegar found Daenerys confronting Yunkish commander resplendent in gold scale. Commander sneered until Drogon landed through shattered dome, talons shearing marble. Terror broke him, he offered keys to slave pens. Daenerys extended mercy. Spare lives for freedom sworn. Rhaegar saw relief in her eyes as chains shattered, children carried into sunlight. Hope kindled. After victory, songs rose around campfires. Rhaegar played softly, crafting new ballad, The Dragon's Mercy. Lyrics entwined victory with restraint, honoring both fire and compassion. He taught chorus to freedmen. Soon tens of voices lifted into night, echoing across plains. Daenerys listened, tears silver in torch glow. She clasped his hand. Your music gives shape to my dream, she said. He met her gaze, heart heavy and light. Your dream gives purpose to my song. But whispers wound their way through camp. Tales of singers' uncanny knowledge, of dragons charmed by his voice, of battlefield feats unbefitting wandering minstrel. One dusk, Missandei approached, brow furrowed. Some say you are a faceless man, she murmured while braiding herbs into his sling bandage. Others claim you are R'hllai's vessel. What should I believe? Rhaegar smiled wearily. A man may be more than one melody, yet melody has name. She waited. He sighed. Have you ever walked so far you forgot the sound of your own? That is where I live. Missandei touched his shoulder. Names matter less than deeds. But he glimpsed suspicion festering. Secrets, once shielded, now threatened everything. Night after night, he debated confession. Could Daenerys accept brother returned? Would her followers? Vision of camp aflame by civil strife haunted sleep. He resolved to stay mask until path clearer. Winter's first breath reached even warm Lazer. Frost's gilding grass at dawn, breath misting. Word came from cohort merchants. Dead walking beyond shivering sea. Ravens lost, wildlings fleeing south. Same merchants spoke of Westeros shattered. The young wolf slain, northern lords butchered at wedding of red flowers and false vows. Ironborn raiding coast. A boy king of Lannister line propped upon iron throne. Despair thickened air like smog. Daenerys paced tent, fists clenched. Every raven brings worse news. If we do not sail soon, we must not fly half-grown, Rhaegar cautioned. Dragons need time. Unsullied need winter garb. Fleets need building. She halted, eyes blazing. How do you know so well what dragons need? Silence yawned. Rhaegar felt weight of years press. He opened mouth, but Torch called counsel. Crisis. Grey plague striking Freedman Quarter. He followed, truth deferred yet again. Still, seed of doubt sprouted. Yora watched him tighter. Blood riders muttered. One mist-wreathed dawn. Rhaegar set 3 eggs upon smooth stone of amphitheater. Dragons circled overhead, curious. He began new song. Valyrian lullaby layered with minor pentatonic scale gleaned from Yiddish flutes. Music spiraled, drawing blue motes of light from eggs' fissures. Shells vibrated. A fracture sprang across green-gold egg. Rhaegar's voice caught, he faltered. Drogon screamed, swooped low, wings stirring dust storm. Flame burst from jaw, searing cracks shut, rendering shell black glass again. Rhaegar staggered. The unborn stilled. Too soon, the world warned. He bowed his head. Patience. Word reached camp of a Selsail fleet in Astapor seeking coin. Daenerys dispatched Rhaegar and Yora to treat. Journey south along coast war 10 days. In Astapor's harbor, they met Captain Salader San, flamboyant Lysine with cunning eyes. Terms hashed in sweating tavern. Ships for gold and promise of plunder once Westeros fell. Rhaegar played bard, soothing tensions with compliments to Lysine wine and jests at San's legendary appetite. Agreement sealed, Rhaegar purchased barrels of limes and salt pork for voyage back north. Yet in shadowed courtyard, San cornered him. You hide a noble bearing poorly, my friend. Lysine eyes miss little. He tapped Rhaegar's coin pouch. Old Westerosi mint, dragon's head, currency no bard should wield. A grin of polished ivory. Fear not. I keep profitable secrets. Rhaegar inclined head. Keep this one silent, and profit shall be tenfold when queen sits throne. They clasped wrists. Bargain born of mutual deceit. On journey return, Rhaegar and Yora camped near deserted lighthouse. Moon carved silver across sea. Yora prodded embers. The queen trusts you more each day, he said. Rhaegar watched tide. And you fear what that means. I fear betrayal. Yora hesitated. Years ago I spied on her myself, for pardon of exile. I have since repented, but truth nearly cost her life. If she learns another close advisor hides identity, I seek no ransom or pardon, Rhaegar said quietly. Only dawn. Yora studied him, then sighed. When the day comes she judges you, I'll speak for your heart, but secrets rot. He rose, walked into night. Rhaegar remained, listening to surf mimic far distant river. Memory of Trident surged, Robert's hammer, rubies blooming like wound in water. He whispered into wind, Father, forgive. Mother, forgive. But answers only waves. Spring thaw in laser-flooded plains, bringing lush grasses and locust swarms. Daenerys's camp thrived, new forges rang, training yards hummed. Yet word arrived of Yunkai and Meereen forging pact with Volantene Triarchs, hiring Selsail Legion to reclaim Slaver's Bay. Were loomed again. Daenerys gathered counsel. Rhaegar urged decapitation strike. Surprise assault on Volantene flagship to deter alliance before it sailed. She agreed. Under moonless sky, Rhaegar led small crew aboard rickety fishing sloop painted tar black. Dragons circled high as silent guardians. They slipped into Volantene harbor, past proud towers flickering lanterns. Rhaegar scaled anchor chain of war galley Karn's pride, knife-clenched teeth. On deck, he disabled sentries with pommel strikes. Below, he found powder stores, wildfire casks purchased from Lys alchemists. He rigged fuses of oil-soaked hemp, humming lullaby mask breath. As he lit final fuse, memory slammed. Ares shrieking burned them all beneath red keep. Rhaegar recoiled, almost quenching spark. but vision of children in chains steadied hand. He fled topside, leapt into harbor, cold water swallowed. Behind, wildfire bloomed green, devouring galley, licking adjacent hulls. Harbor erupted. Rhaegar swam until lungs burned, hauled onto fisher skiff where crew awaited. They rowed madly. Dawn rose upon Volantis cloaked in choking smoke. Cellsail Legion withdrew packed. Triarchs turned inward. Victory without pitched battle. Still, guilt crawled. Men roasted alive. Rhaegar dreamed screams nights after. Daenerys thanked him before gathered followers, hailed him ghost of firewater. Cheers echoed. He bowed but could not meet their eyes. Late summer, as dragons reached horse size, Daenerys ordered departure from Slaver's Bay. Fleet massed Salator's warships, captured galleys from Yunkai, fishing cogs refitted with siege scorpions. Unsullied boarded, freedmen loaded stores. Before embarkation, Daenerys summoned Rhaegar to palisade overlooking camp. Wind whipped her cloak. Dragons soared above, shadows racing waves. "When we sail," she said, "I will announce my hand of the queen." She met his gaze. "It will be you." Breath fled chest. He stepped back.
No.
"Your followers will not accept a nameless bard." "Then tell me your name." He gripped railing. Sea hissed below like crowd waiting judgment. Years of concealment collapsed under weight of her stare. "I was born Rhaegar of House Targaryen," he whispered. Silence. Only cry of distant gull. She did not blink. "My brother died at the Trident." "I should have," he said. Voice cracked, but river spared. I hid, ashamed. Lightning stormed her eyes. Grief, wonder, fury, betrayal. Dragons shrieked overhead. She turned away, arms folded tight. "Why now?" "Because you place faith in ghosts you do not know," he said. "Because secret wedges distrust. I would stand at your side in truth, not mask." Her shoulders trembled. "You abandoned Viserys. You abandoned me." Tears welled. "I was told you fled Dragonstone safely. I believed prophecy required me elsewhere. I was wrong." She whirled. "Prophecy." The word dripped disdain. "Men kill for prophecy, justify horrors. Will you?" "I have," he admitted. "I seek to atone by guiding you away from same abyss." Thundercloud emotions roiled her face. At last she exhaled slow. "You will not be my hand. Not yet." She stepped closer, searching eyes. "But neither will I cast you out. Earn back trust, Kapa." Old Valyrian for uncle, or older for father's brother. She tasted word carefully, unsure. Rhaegar sank to knee. "Every breath, every note, I will." She turned, silhouette limned by sunset bleeding horizon. "Rise then, singer. The world waits." Fleet sailed within fortnight. Dragons wheeled above masts. Rhaegar stood aft castle of flagship Silver Wind, hair unbound, salt spray kissing cheek. He watched Essos recede, birthplace of exile, forging ground of redemption. Ahead lay narrow sea, storms, navies, winter wolves, icy specters beyond wall. Behind, 3 eggs pulsed softly in cabin chest, awaiting their hour. Beneath his feet, deck boards hummed chord of possibility. He lifted voice in low cantos Valyria, singing of dawn yet unbroken, of dragons born of blood and mercy, of a queen whose steps might mend the world if guided by song and steel alike. Crew hushed, listening. Even wind seemed to swell in harmony, sails billowing. In that moment, Rhaegar felt prophecy not as chain but as duet. 2 voices, hers and his, weaving tapestry yet incomplete. Across narrowing sea Westeros waited. Realm of ghosts and wounds, of rubies lost in river mud. He inhaled salt and storm, steadying heart. Whatever trials awaited, crowns, daggers, fire-born children. He would meet them not as prince returned, but as guardian of song seeking dawn. And somewhere beyond horizon, winter's breath gathered, eager to drown all. But dawn could burn even longest night, if dragonfire and human mercy rose together. So the silver wind cut through foam, carrying a singer, a queen, and the fragile melody of hope toward a world on cusp of darkness, and perhaps, with enough courage, on cusp of light. Mist mantled the narrow sea like a funeral shroud as the silver wind sliced westward into leagues of slate-gray water. For 3 days the sun appeared only as a pallid disk smudged behind cloud, and every timber of the flagship shivered beneath the same raw wind that once carved the stepstones from living rock. Rhaegar spent the passage walking the weather deck, hood drawn close, studying the set of every spar and line as though the geometry of sail and storm might whisper what awaited them beyond the fog. The crew had begun to call him Gaish Old Giskery for Shadowkept, and left a respectful berth whenever his boots thudded past. Only the dragons seemed untroubled. They rode the gale like black, green, and cream gold comets, looping through curtains of spray, banking so close to the rolling masts that the topsails sang with heat distortion. On the fourth dawn, a ragged streak of aquamarine bled across the cloud bank ahead, widening into a rent as if some immense creature had clawed the sky. Through that wound broke pale sunlight, its spear of gold picking out a fortress island crouched upon the horizon. Dragonstone, ancestral seat of House Targaryen, carved like 1,000 fangs of black basalt thrust from the sea. The castle's towers resembled dragons caught mid-shriek, mouths agape, wings petrified for eternity. In younger years, the sight would have quickened Rhaegar's pulse with pride. Now it stirred only a hollow ache. He clutched the gunwale and breathed brine sharp enough to slice lungs. Daenerys joined him without greeting. She wore boiled leather breeches, a jerkin lined in white fur, and no crown. Drogon glided overhead, casting a vast, rippling shadow that swallowed both queen and prince in its wingspan. Rhaegar inclined his head an inch. "Dragonstone," she murmured, "the first breath of my forebears upon Westerosi soil." "And yours, Malikagon," he replied in high Valyrian, "little flame, though you left it swaddled in storm, and returned cloaked in one," she said, eyes fixed on jagged towers. After a beat she added, "How many ghosts lie there, do you think?" "Fewer than in my mind," he said. She made no answer. The wind tangled silver-gold hair across her mouth. She lifted strands clear, watching them whip away like living banners of intent. Behind them, the fleet of 53 vessels stoically fell into column. Salader San's Valyrian kiss, the tri-masted Balerian's roar, 3 hulking Yunkish grain transports, even a dozen fishing cogs strung with improvised ballistae. The ragged armada's ragtag banners formed a kaleidoscope of crimson, teal, and sable, but at each mainmast's peak flew the same standard now, a 3-headed dragon breathing black on red. "Signal the fleet," Daenerys commanded. "No landing until we have secured the causeway. Drogon will circle thrice. When he dives, launch the scouts." Rhaegar traced the tension in her shoulders, the clipped cadence. Doubt still gnawed at her. His revelation hung between them like a sword suspended upon a hair. He could do nothing now but serve. He bowed, brisk, and hurried toward the quarterdeck where Ser Jorah Mormont stood hunched over a map nailed against a spar to keep it from flapping away. Dragonstone's sea gate opened for them, though no raven had heralded their coming. Columns of black smoke rose from a small brazier upon the outer wall, a watch signal, but one that suggested shortage of men rather than organized defense. As the silver wind glided through the narrow channel, Rhaegar scanned parapets bleached white with gull droppings. No banner of Baratheon or Lannister stirred. Only seabirds wheeled and cried. Longboats splashed down by the dozens. Unsullied in winter-dyed cloaks slipped oars into water as silent as a procession of ghosts. Rhaegar and Jorah led the vanguard toward the moss-slick landing stairs at the base of the island's basalt promontory. Drogon tore circles overhead, his shadow racing across black waves like some ancient omen come to life. When the keel thudded into slippery rock, the Unsullied vaulted out, spears already forming a bristling ring. Rhaegar's boots hit the stone, and memory slammed him. Running these same steps at 10, silver hair plastered to cheeks by hurricane rain, hands clutching harp instead of sword while Summerhall servants joked about future queens. He shook the ghosts away and lifted his short horn to signal. 2 long blasts. From the upper bailey, a single answering note drifted down, weak as an old man's sigh. "Not abandoned," grunted Yora. "But near enough," Rhaegar returned. They climbed. No resistance met them, only salt-blasted walls and statues whose dragon heads had lost half their teeth to wind erosion. The courtyard beyond the main gate yawned emptily, puddled with rainwater so still it reflected gray sky like cracked glass. A handful of guards in patched cloaks huddled beneath a loggia. Their helms bore the crowned stag of Baratheon, but the paint was chipped, the leather straps frayed. They stared at approaching unsullied with eyes bulbous from sleeplessness. One lank-jawed sergeant stepped forward. "By whose authority do you take anchor here?" he quavered, gripping a pitted halberd. Rhaegar pushed back his hood, letting moon-pale hair fall to shoulders. "By the blood of the dragon," he said, "and by right of the last true-born of Ares, first of that name." Gasps rippled. The sergeant's halberd clanged onto flagstone. He dropped to knee so swiftly his armor rang. Behind him the other guards followed suit, one even weeping. "Please," the sergeant stammered. "We are but 40 left, sire. We've seen no gold in 2 moons, no fresh stores in 5. Rhaegar's jaw tightened. "You will have both. Gather your wounded in the sept courtyard. My healers carry salves." Daenerys arrived moments later astride a pale dun courser, cloak snapping as if alive. At sight of the kneeling men, she raised an eyebrow. Yora murmured at her side, but she waved him quiet and trotted forward. Brother and sister regarded one another before the bronze doors of the ancient keep. In that hush, Drogon alit upon the parapet with a thunderous chuff, shaking masonry loose in a rain of gravel. The sergeant flung himself prostrate. "Rise," Daenerys said. "No further blood will stain these stones today." Rhaegar studied her face as she spoke. Voice iron-ringed, chin held high. The men lifted trembling. "Send runners to every village in the storm-swept marches," she commanded. "Tell them Daenerys Stormborn has come home and offers pardon for fealty. Those who fear may keep their gods and their names. Only their chains must break." The sergeant swallowed and nodded. Rhaegar caught flicker of hope swirl with fear in his eyes. The same alchemy he'd once brewed in subjects from King's Landing to Dorne. Let it forge better alloy this time, he prayed. They made their seat in the council tower, where long windows overlooked a frothing sea. For 3 days ravens flapped inland carrying parchment black with the 3-headed dragon. For 3 nights smithies hammered nails for stockade repair, and the kitchen stewed whatever thin goats the garrison had left. Rhaegar oversaw rationing, using his childhood knowledge of the island's cistern tunnels to divert fresh water into flooded cellars for storage. Cell captains grew restless. No loot here, only rock and ruin. But Salladhor Saan winked over his wine cup and said, "A dragon queen pays her debts in fire and gold. I'll wait for both." On the 5th morning, a lone ship appeared. A battered galley flying a golden-crowned stag on black. Its deck carried fewer than 50 men, all gaunt. They offered parley at midday. Ser Davos Seaworth, once hand to the late King Stannis, petitioned aid. "We fled Eastwatch after the others broke the wall," Davos told the gathered council in Dragonstone's drafty throne room. "King Stannis is dead. Jon Snow leads survivors south, but provisions dwindle." Daenerys' eyes blazed. "The walkers have passed the wall?" "Aye, your grace. The realm burns and freezes both. Lannister holds have failed. King's Landing starves behind doors of iron." Rhaegar felt the room tilt. Whispers brushing desert campfires sharpened to a spear point. Winter gathers. He exchanged glances with Missandei, who translated for unsullied officers. Their faces remained stoic marble, but fear flickered. Daenerys paced before looming basalt columns shaped like grasping dragon claws. Then battle for throne defers. All banners must face this foe. She turned to Ser Davos. "How many stand behind Jon Snow?" "Less than 5,000 free folk and crows combined, plus 24 giants." He paused. "And, queens forgive me, a few of the old gods." Rhaegar spoke. "Lord Davos, how stands the Wall's Night's watch on prophecy? Does Lord Snow believe a Targaryen's fire may turn this tide?" Davos's weather-cracked gaze settled on him. Prophecy is dry fishbone to Jon Snow. He trusts what sword and heart can show. If you mean to send dragons north, he'll bless any boon that burns dead men. Yora frowned. Dragons will falter in snowfields. Their blood runs hot. To keep them ground-bound is to waste our greatest blade, argued Rhaegar. Daenerys halted them with raised palm. If north is besieged, we go north, but we must march as one. Dragons unsullied, sell sails, free folk we free along the way. Rhaegar, she used his true name before the council for first time, will oversee provisions and weapons. Yora, you hold the island with a rear guard. Her purple gaze swept room. We sail at fortnight's end. Prepare. No cheers, only solemn nods. Even Salader San swallowed his grin. The weight of world had settled heavily upon their shoulders. Rhaegar spent the next days elbow-deep in ledgers, tallying arrow shafts, salting casks of cod, drafting messages to every loyalist contact he still trusted. Nightly he walked sea battlements to clear head, harp slung at hip. One such midnight he found Melisandre of Asshai awaiting in a shadow gap where moonlight traced ribs of stone. Her red silk gown fluttered though the wind felt dead. "Prince that was promised," she greeted, voice low as embers. "Long have I watched for you in my flames. Twice now the fire Ms. showed me. First in charming Stannis, then in whispering your death at Trident. Yet here you stand, older, dimmed, but burning still." Rhaegar bowed slightly, wary. "The flames misguide all who gaze too deeply. What seek you now? To see if prophecy yet chooses you? Or the girl?" She drifted closer, eyes glowing behind braided copper hair. "She rides dragons. You sing them awake." Fingertips brushed his sleeve. Heat pulsed. "Both carry king's blood." "We carry burden," he corrected. "Burden and blade," she whispered. "The night comes. Lightbringer must shine." He met her gaze. "Leave forging to smith and song. Keep your fires for warmth, not verdict." Melisandre smiled, enigmatic as desert mirage. "We shall see who forges whom, Prince." She vanished between Merlin's, red silk flicking like dying spark. Rhaegar shivered though sweat dampened hairline. The eggs upon his chamber's hearth later felt warmer than ever. He lay awake listening to faint throb within their shells until dawn crept pale across casement. The armada sailed again under hoarfrost clouds, hugging coast to avoid autumn squalls. Refugees flocked to beaches. Farmers, fisherwives, children half-clothed, begging passage from warships they once feared. Daenerys commanded boats lowered. "Any able to hold blade or bow may fight," she declared. "But the very young and very old will still eat the same bread as my blood riders." Some captains balked. She cowed them with a single glare. Rhaegar worked hold schedules, drawing extra grain from Balerian's roar to feed additions. At night he brought harp to lower decks where small folk huddled between barrels. He played soothing rhymes of summer isles and Dornish pepper songs to drown sound of retching seasickness. On one such night, a ragged woman asked if he'd sing of Rhaegar Targaryen, the prince who loved his people. It struck him silent until she spoke again. "I heard his ghost fights for the living now." He forced a smile and strummed a gentle chord. "Then let this ghost give you dreamless sleep," he murmured, and wove melody where sorrow melted into driftwood on moon-bent tide. Storms dogged them past Cracklaw Point. Lightning painted sails sulphur-white while waves hammered hulls. Drogon shrieked defiance at thunder, spiraling through sheeting rain. Rhaegar lashed himself to midmast and guided sailors where ropes snapped. 3 fell overboard but Dragon's Dove, searing sea with blue flame enough to frighten off sharks while lifelines hauled men back half alive. Word spread of Stormbinder Singer, deepening legend beyond his control. 3 days later they anchored in Blackwater Bay. King's Landing's distant silhouette rose like a rotted crown. Ring walls scorched, the great Sept's dome collapsed, smoke columns snaking upward though no siege engines battered gates. Hunger had become the city's own conqueror. Lannister lions drooped from parapet poles, their gold dull as tarnished lies. Daenerys refused immediate assault. "We liberate, not sack," she said, "but we cannot pause." The true enemy walks the north. So they landed only at the mouth of Blackwater Rush, where abandoned fisheries lined mudflats. Unsullied secured perimeter. Wagons ferried refugees inland. Rhaegar stood upon a ruined dock, staring upriver, remembering the day wildfire consumed lordships and dreams alike during the last war. He wondered if the city's ashes could ever nourish new growth. Near dusk, a lone rider appeared on the King's Road, banner white as bone-bearing direwolf sigil. Rhaegar's heart jolted. The Stark line lived yet. The rider proved a girl scarce 14, hair cropped like frost-sheared wheat. She dismounted stiffly before Daenerys, handed sealed letter, then collapsed from exhaustion. Healers whisked her away while Daenerys broke the wax. I scanned, widening. Jon Snow marches to Winterfell, she announced. He means to rally houses still standing, to hold the line at the neck. She met Rhaegar's gaze. We sail upriver and disembark at White Harbor. Dragons can blunt the dead before they reach Moat Cailin. Rhaegar nodded. The Bay of Seals remains free of ice this season. A swift current can carry us faster than marching. Salader San whistled. Sailin' north into winter's jaws? My men prefer warm lysine sheets. Then they may remain, Daenerys said. But any who do will forfeit their share of treasures when victory is had. Salader's grin returned. Treasure warms any bed, if one sleeps on coins. Departure required abandoning hopes of throning without bloodshed. Some petty lords already whispered that the usurper's spawn, Tommen, sat weak upon Iron Throne. They urged Daenerys to seize city and crown before chasing icy specters. Rhaegar argued most fiercely against. Every sword we lose in urban siege is one less at wall, he said. Win the dawn, and crown comes freely. Daenerys listened, yet he saw turmoil in her. That night they stood upon forecastle of Valyrian Kiss, moonlight glazing water. She spoke first. When I was small, I dreamed of the Red Keep's throne room. My brother Viserys told me each gemstone on the iron seat still gleamed with our family's breath. Now the seat lies rust-coated, untouched, and I leave it so again. Rhaegar leaned against rail. Destiny rarely keeps tidy schedule. Thrones can wait, winters seldom. She studied his profile. You speak as though prophecy bends to will, yet prophecy once bent you to tragedy. He flinched. It bent me because I yielded. Perhaps true wisdom lies in shaping prophecy as potter shapes clay. Press gentle, turn slow, keep water ready to soothe cracks. She smiled faintly. And if the clay rebels? We sing it calm, he said, strumming invisible strings on rail. She turned away, yet her shoulders eased. White Harbor appeared like a pale lantern amid whitening fields. Snow flurries danced upon biting wind. The Manderley garrison received them with quiet wonder. Lord Wyman, grown gaunt, offered salted pork and humble halls, confessing that winter wolves, not Lannisters, prowled their dreams now. Rhaegar negotiated quartering of Unsullied within defanged whaling warehouses. Dragons roost atop the wolf's den, terrifying fat pigeons into mass exodus. Within a se'nnight Jon Snow arrived. A column of free folk, wildlings in patchwork furs, giants loping enormous behind. The night before their entry Rhaegar stood with Daenerys on city wall watching distant Torch River approach. He felt the air thrum, not unlike eggs when near to hatching. Destiny braided. Jon entered on foot beside Tormund Giantsbane, a direwolf padding at his heel. Snow dusted black curls, eyes appraised like a battle-hardened steward taking stock. He bowed stiffly to Daenerys, yet when his gaze shifted to Rhaegar, something raw flashed. I know that face, Jon murmured under breath. Seen it in Cranagman's sketches of dead princes. Daenerys answered instead. This is Rhaegar Targaryen, my brother. Voice carried across silent courtyard, echoing off whalebone arches. A hush. Jon's brow nodded, not disbelief, but processing. Finally he nodded. Then we are kin thrice removed. I carry your sister's blood. He extended forearm. Shock crashed through Rhaegar. Sister's blood? He clasped the offered arm reflexively. Lyanna, he whispered. I. Jon's grip tightened. I am her son. World reeled. Memories of Tower of Joy flooded. The screams, the promise whispered as Lyanna bled. He had not known. Tears blurred vision. He stepped back, chest seized. Jon's face softened. She charged Ned Stark to protect me, to keep me hidden. He glanced at Daenerys, then unsullied. Maybe secret kept long enough. Daenerys reached, steadying Rhaegar's elbow. Blood of dragon, blood of wolf, she said. Now we stand together. News rippled through camp. Some muttered that claim to throne multiplied thrice. Others saw only Union's strength. Rhaegar spent that night in the rookery, staring at parchment where he attempted to pen words to Ghost of Lyanna. None came. Dawn answered instead. Horn blasts from harbor. Salader's scout sloop staggered in bearing riddled men half-frozen. Undead host, they rasped. 10 leagues south, following King's Road. War Council convened in Wolf's Den's Grand Hall. Jon mapped White's march. Tormund spoke of giants turned white as ice. Daenerys paced, fist closed. Rhaegar proposed planar defense. Use flooded tidal flats near Moat Cailin where water slowed dead. Dragons scorched from above while unsullied formed shield wall along causeway. Whites fear no swamp, Jon countered. But we can funnel them. Plans refined long into night. Finally decisions set. 1,000 unsullied under Grey Worm to hold outer dike with giant crossbows. Dragons to strafe rear flanks, avoiding prolonged hover lest frostbite wings. Wildlings and northern archers to man ridge lines, flaming arrows dipping in tar barrels. Rhaegar to ride at Daenerys's left with blue-veined egg secured to saddle. Last contingency should dragons falter. Jon eyed the egg. Another hatchling? When time is right, Rhaegar said. Jon clasped his forearm again, this time as brothers in arms. Time grows thin like autumn ice. They marched under skies bruised violet. Frost tightened every strap, turned breath to plumes. On second day, Rhaegar rode between ranks of freedmen, singing marching cadence to keep feet from numbing. Dragons soared overhead but drooped wings seldom, saving strength. By dusk their campfires crackled along the next treeline like a constellation captured upon Earth. That night Rhaegar could not sleep. He paced perimeter until he reached by chance the cranewood cage where giants hulkied. Massive shapes hunched beneath mammoth hides. One giantess, her eyes luminous cobalt, watched him approach. Little Singer carries fire rock, she rumbled in broken common. He nodded, hand brushing satchel. One day it will hatch. Fire good, she said. Ice bad. She tapped temple. Song inside stone. Must sing loud. He smiled sadly. I will. Battle met them at dawn, veiled in hoarfrost so thick the world seemed carved from white smoke. From north a moan rose. Hundreds, thousands of dead throats chanting hunger without word. Then shapes emerged. Ranks of whites dragging rusted blades, eyes blue like glacier hearts. At their center rode figures upon dead horses. White walkers, skin crystallized, spears shimmering with ice-forged cold. Rhaegar spurred forward beside Daenerys. She urged Drogon aloft. Regal and Viserion followed in a roar of leather wings. Flames raked across undead ranks, but where dozens burned, hundreds pressed behind, heedless. Ice spears launched upward on unseen winds. Frost formed on Drogon's scales. He screamed, banking. On ground, unsullied slammed shields, forming phalanx across knee-deep swamp. Whites splashed forward, bog mud sucking their ankles. Arrows rained, barbed reed shafts aflame. Giants hurled boulders, crushing knotted masses of corpses. Rhaegar dismounted where slope met causeway, drew Valyrian steel longsword taken from Dragonstone's vault, Sorrow's Bloom, once wielded by lost Bracken kings. He sang as he fought, breath shaping staccato cadences that kept tempo for soldiers flanking him. Each swing severed limbs cold as marble. Behind, Grey Worm's command echoed, "Hold! Hold!" as phalanx gave but a single step then none. A white walker advanced, ice spear glistening. Rhaegar met it. Steel kissed ice, shriek splitting air. Frost spread along blade. He pivoted, batting spear aside, then slid sword through translucent torso. Walker shattered in explosion of snow crystals that glittered like diamonds caught in sunrise. White's nearest fell inert, but more surged. Rhaegar felt fatigue creep icy fingers along spine. He retreated to higher ground where Jon Snow fought, Longclaw flashing. Their backs met. "Brother," Jon gasped. Rhaegar touched shoulder. Wordless bond. Above, a piercing screech. A walker hurled ice lance struck Viserion's wing.
Membrane Tore, Dragon spiralt.
Daenerys cried out, diving on Drogon to intercept. Walker riders rallied, blue eyes glinting triumph. Rhaegar's mind split between battlefield and egg at his side, pulsing like frenzied heart. He remembered Mother Shadow's words. Fire needs flesh, and flesh needs purpose. He slashed another white, then sheathed sword. "Jon!" he shouted over din, "cover me." He dragged reins of his mare, bolted for ridge outcrop where pitch cauldrons lay unused. Shieldbearer followed bewildered. Rhaegar seized torch, plunged into tar, flame whooshing high. He pulled blue-veined egg from satchel, heat now blistering, held it above cauldron. He cut palm anew with dagger, let blood fall onto shell. Then he began to sing. Not battle cadence but deep Valyrian cradle hymn. Notes trembling from throat raw with cold and smoke. Flame-licked shell, cracks webbed, glowing azure. A scream, thin as dawn's first breeze, emanated from within. Cauldron oil ignited fully, pillar of fire brushing sky. Rhaegar plunged egg into inferno. Pain-seared hands, he did not stop singing. Shell burst inward. Winged silhouette surged up through plume. A hatchling bathed in cobalt flames, eyes molten silver. It screeched, beating tiny wings slick with fluid, then turned them to steam. Rhaegar recoiled, falling. The newborn dragon fixed on whites below, exhaled torrent of blue-white flame that crystallized corpses into brittle statues which shattered beneath their own momentum. Jon Snow gaped. By the old gods! Rhaegar pushed to knees, cradling scorched hand. The hatchling landed on rampart, creeling. He reached, voice hoarse. There, little star, the night is cold, but our fire burns. It nuzzled bloody palm, purring. Battle tide shifted. With newborn's flame and adult dragon's fury combined, undead ranks faltered, crawled back. Walkers hissed commands that fractured upon swirling snow. One raised spear toward hatchling. Drogon plummeted from storm cloud, jaws engulfing Walker in inferno bright enough to sear retinas. Ice melted, ground hissed steam. Within hours, dead lay quenched, bodies burned or silent in deep swamp. Surviving walkers receded into blizzard that blew from north like a shroud, but not before losing dozens of their icy captains. Jon wanted pursuit. Daenerys stayed him. They retreat to gather greater storm. We must heal, then march united.
Rhaegar kollapsed beside tar cauldron, exhaustion swallowing senses.
Hatchling curled at his side, whistling. Jon approached, eyes wide at Cobalt Dragon. Name her, Rhaegar whispered. Jon knelt, stroking scaled head. Lyanna, he breathed. Rhaegar's throat clenched. Lyannaries, he declared, weaving Valyrian suffix for Dragon Queen. Hatchling chuffed approval. Daenerys arrived, cloak ash-streaked, Drogon landing heavy behind. She knelt opposite Rhaegar. Their gazes locked over new life born of blood and fire. She touched burnt hand gently. You have forged Lightbringer not of steel but of scale, she said. He smiled weakly. Let us hope its glow guides, not blinds. She helped him stand. Towers of shattered ice glittered around them, reflecting dawn, painting battlefield a cathedral of pale fire. Survivors cheered. Horns called mourning for dead but also triumph. Yet in the distance, thunder rolled, a rumble not of weather but of countless frozen feet regrouping. The war was not ended, only joined proper. Rhaegar gazed north, hatchling perched upon shoulder, and felt weight of destiny settle anew. But for first time since River's breath spared him, he did not tremble. For song was no longer his alone. It belonged now to many voices: Daenerys's, Jon's, the giants, Freedman's, even newborn Lyannary's shrill trill blending into gathering dawn. He drew a breath sharp as frost, lifted face to rising sun. "Let the long night come," he whispered, "for we carry the morning in our veins." And the chorus of dragons answered, shaking snow from pines as the armies of the living prepared to march once more, this time not merely toward battle, but toward a rebirth that might finally justify all the blood poured upon the songs of men.